All right, welcome back to the channel. I have another spicy bonus segment that I want to talk about today. I'm sure you've noticed an individual going quite viral lately. Her name is Virgie Tovar, and she's going viral because San Francisco has hired her as their fat positive body image expert to work for the health department. Now, she doesn't really have a health background. She holds a master's degree in sexuality studies with a focus on intersectionality, which is like how size, race, and gender intersect. So essentially the oppression Olympics. But she's been quite the controversial character for a while now because of her viewpoints. And of course, her going viral because of this story has made some videos resurface. One video I want to talk about is a TED Talk from back in the day. I think it was about 7 years ago. That was a little, she said some things in there that I want to go over. And then also there was a YouTube video that started going viral where she talks about how eating less cake is oppressive. But before we get into that, I just want to say, talking directly to Virgie, I highly doubt that this video will make it to her feed. And even if it does, I'm sure she won't really change her mind because she's probably making a fortune now off of everything that she's talking about in terms of fat acceptance. But firstly, I do understand your intentions. You want to make fat people feel worthy of love and acceptance. And I do think that that is a worthwhile goal because I do think that there are a lot of obese people out there that don't feel worthy of love and acceptance. And that can lead to feelings of, well, what is it all for? And like, why bother? And why bother getting healthy? And why bother dating and all this stuff? And so it can really be a terrible spiral to go down. But unfortunately, the thing that you're leading people to ignore, you are causing harm. Unequivocally, you're causing harm because you're telling people essentially that they're fine the way they are and that, hey, being fat is great, essentially. Lose hate, not weight. And so I think you're discounting just how much of an effect this whole movement of fat acceptance and body positivity is going to have on health outcomes. And we already know that being obese really leads to a lot of negative health outcomes. But I think we're going to find the next 20 years or so that it's so much worse than we even understand. Secondly, just want to throw another caveat in here is that I do think there is such a thing as underweight. So I will say that too. I'm going to piss off all the people here, but you can be too thin. And so I'm not an advocate of being on the low end of the BMI scale either. You can be under muscled where most of your insulin receptors are in your muscles. And so if you don't have a good amount of muscle, you can't really handle glucose all that well. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, I think that you can have an excessive amount of musculature. So again, going to piss off all the people here, but having too much muscle on your frame and being on the high end of that BMI, there's been this movement to say like, oh, BMI isn't even really a good metric because people can be overweight and have muscle. True, but just because they have muscle, the more they have, there's actually a negative effect. So just because you have a bunch of muscle does not disqualify you from contracting all kinds of different diseases, cardiovascular disease especially. I mean, the bodybuilding community, there's people dropping like flies right now in their 30s because they're huge. That and, of course, performance-enhancing drugs. But I just wanted to throw that in there so that you know that I'm trying to be objective here. So one of the big things that I took away from that I really want to talk about is she said what she got from the doctor is that she should shrink her body by any means necessary. And so I just want to say, on top of all that other stuff, I'm sorry that that's the message that you got. And I understand why that's the message that you got. Unfortunately, doctors don't really get very much nutrition counseling or education. And that's unfortunate because a lot of nutrition education is psychology and how to speak to people and motivational interviewing and all these different things. Now, I know doctors get their own form of that, but that's in relationship to medicine. That's not in relationship to food. Not only that, but doctors they're not trying to prescribe nutrition to help you with whatever your medical conditions are. They're just trying to prescribe you medications. That's what they get trained for. So I think it's sad that you got the message from the doctor that you should shrink your body by any means necessary, as opposed to having the conversation about muscle, as opposed to having the conversation about just trying to lose fat instead of losing weight. Because I do think that there's two massive different things there. But just to, reinforce that point, a 2015 report from US News Health indicated that only 29% of medical schools offered the recommended minimum of 25 hours of nutrition education. Additionally, a 2010 survey found that only 27% of programs met this recommendation. And then a Harvard study, furthermore, fewer than 20% of medical schools required a dedicated nutrition course. This is from Harvard News. On average, medical students receive less than 20 hours of nutrition instruction over 4 years, which is less than 1% of their total lecture hours. So I get it. And that can really lead to doctors saying things that are discompassionate and not really being able to change people's lives for the long term. However, this quote really bothers me. It's not the weight that needs to be shed, but rather the ideology that we're not perfect no matter our size. So what she's saying there is that we are perfect no matter our size. And that word perfect is the word that sticks out to me, because no one is perfect. I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. And if we say that we're perfect, we're creating an environment where there is no longer any need to improve. And I think that is the issue. No matter what your weight, you are not perfect at all. And so like me personally, if I have friends that are sitting around telling me I'm perfect and I don't need to do anything and I don't need to improve and this, that, and the third, honestly, I won't be friends with them because I don't need that type of energy in my life. I'm trying to do something great. I'm trying to build something special, and I need people around me that are going to call me on my bullshit, because I am full of bullshit just like anyone else. And I need people that are going to give me constructive criticism so that I can make incremental adjustments to what it is I'm doing to improve. Because I'm not like, I'm doing this podcast and I'm doing YouTube. If I was perfect, I would be famous. I'm not perfect. There are little things that people will notice about this video, about the way that I speak. And for them to tell me means a lot to me, because if you make me aware of it, now I can change it. Now I can keep making my way to the top of that mountain. But if no one tells me anything and everyone just affirms me, then I won't go anywhere. I won't make anything of this new project that I'm working on. And I do think that this is a uniquely female opinion, because unfortunately, females are told from the day they're born that they're perfect and they're princesses and this, that, and the third. And that's not the reality. Real quick, sorry to interrupt. If you're still here, I really appreciate you. If you've gotten any value from this video, please consider hitting the subscribe button and hitting the notification bell so that you get notified every time I release a new video. I release a full podcast every Tuesday, wherever you get your podcasts. And also throughout the week, I'm releasing segment videos that could be anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes long, just providing my commentary on segments that interested me that week. But hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and that's it for me. Back to the video. Where therapy used to be, you go into a psychologist's office, you tell them your issues, and they help you improve. They give you small, actionable steps to help you go in the direction of improvement to deal with whatever it is that you're dealing with. Now, however, there's an affirming model of therapy where you go in and no matter what it is, they just affirm. In fact, there's so many more psychological conditions now that weren't around back in the day. And I think my opinion is that that's coming from they're making stuff up so that they can continue to affirm people. Well, you have this issue. Well, this sounds like this. You have that issue. This sounds like this. Oh, let me give you this medication for this. Let me give you this medication for this. You don't need to improve. You just need this medication and that'll fix all of your problems. So that's the path that this is leading down, is just affirm. And it's not good. It's not a good path. But just to reinforce all of this stuff with obesity and mortality, this is a massive study. And if you just spend 5 to 10 minutes looking up obesity research and the relationship between obesity and morbidity, it's clear. Being obese, whether directly or indirectly, will shave years off of your life. It can cause cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, all kinds of different things. But so this study is entitled BMI and All-Cause Mortality, a systematic review and nonlinear dose response meta-analysis of 230 cohort studies with 3.74 million deaths among 30.3 million participants. Massive. This is from the BMJ. And it conducted a comprehensive analysis to examine the relationship between body mass index and all-cause mortality. Firstly, I will say, just a quick caveat, I'm not a big fan of all-cause mortality, and I spoke about this in another podcast, because there are massive confounding, but not in favor of obesity, to be honest with you. So all-cause mortality is looking at all kinds of different things. It's looking at car accidents, stab wounds, falling off a mountainside. So if you really think about it, people like me I take a lot more risks than the average everyday person. I actually almost got hit by a car the other day. I was running and it was really dark outside. It's like 6 a.m. And a car was making a left-hand turn. They ran a red light. I was running across the street and luckily they saw me and I saw them. I have really quick reaction time. So I was able to stop. But like if I had just been eyes forward, I would have got hit and I would have been a statistic. So people that are at a healthy BMI, they are more likely to take risks like that, to where there's an increased chance of a traffic incident happening because they're running and they're crossing streets more frequently. They will do stuff like whitewater rafting, the more advanced courses, because they're looking for challenges more often. They'll go on hikes where they'll do trails that have 8 to 10,000 feet of elevation. The more advanced trails, there's a risk with that. And so a lot of these obesity studies can't capture that risk, unfortunately. And you won't really get high quality randomized controlled trials because unfortunately it's unethical to, tell someone to stay obese over the course of a study. But hey, I think we have enough people now that want to be obese that we should just throw that ethical consideration out the window. Because if these people want to be obese, okay, great. Why don't you come enter this study and then, put your money where your mouth is? But anyways, so some of the findings of the study, for every 5-unit BMI increase, the relative risk of death rose by 18% among never smokers, 21% among healthy never smokers, and 27% in healthy never smokers when early follow-up deaths were excluded. So 5-unit BMI increase, that's absolutely massive. So imagine someone going from a healthy BMI of 22 and they add, 20 points to that. So they end up at 42 or something like that. That's a massive increase that they're going to incur. Optimal BMI for the lowest mortality was found to be 23 to 24 for never smokers, 22 to 23 for healthy never smokers, and then 20 to 22 for studies with less than or greater than or equal to 20 years of follow-up in never smokers. My BMI is 21 and I weigh 185 pounds and I'm about 6 feet tall. So again, I do think, and I have a lot of muscle. I think if I was 30 pounds heavier than I am now, that would put me in the overweight. It would put me right at the end of the normal end of the BMI scale, but it would put me probably right there at overweight. And I do feel that even though I had muscle, I would be at an increased risk of mortality. I think this is just the takeaway here is that it's been shown time and time again that BMI is clearly associated with mortality, both on the low end and the high end. So one of her quotes is, so in the YouTube video, eating less cake is oppression. She was talking about how when you go to a party or something and people are gathered around a cake and, there's people that when the cake is being sliced, they'll say, oh, not too big of a piece for me, please, blah, blah, blah. And she says that smaller slices of cake are misogynistic because quote, it is almost invariably always a woman that cuts the cake. So this is a sexist comment because what you're saying is so that's your experience that maybe you've seen that, but that's not always the case. And in fact, it's been my experience that most of the time when it comes to chef circumstances where food's being prepared, food's being served, someone has to cut something, whether it's cake or carving the turkey or whatever, it's most of the time men. In fact, most of the chefs in the world are men. So for you to make the assumption that it's mostly women, you are actually falling into that stigma more than everyone else is. But I loved cooking for, my ex-girlfriends in the past. And one of my exes, I used to cook for her every morning. I would make breakfast, I would do all kinds of stuff. But she says that diet culture disproportionately affects women and maps onto sexism. And my question is, who do you see working out at the gym most of the time? Like, it's men. It's not like this makes the assumption that diet culture only minimally affects men. And I think that's absolutely wrong. I think diet culture affects men in a different way, where they're encouraged to have an excessive amount of muscle that's not realistic and again is unhealthy. So you go to the gym, 90% of the people in the gym are going to be men, at least in the gyms that have a weight training centered appeal. Some gyms can be more cardio equipment. And for some of those, you will see a more even distribution. But if it's like a powerlifting gym, a strength training gym where they have a lot of like free weights and a lot of weight machines and stuff, Most of the people in there are going to be men, period. No getting around that. And so for me, I think that speaks volumes about who is actually pressured to change. But I do think that it's a good thing. I think women have pressure standards to be beautiful and men have pressure standards to be handsome and the protector. And the protector stigma comes with, hey, you need to be big and strong and be able to protect your family and be capable. So like part of that I don't think is bad, but I do think that there are standards that are put on all of us to improve to an unrealistic place, unrealistic beauty or unrealistic handsome standards or unrealistic musculature standards. But I spent Christmas Eve at one of my friend's house and there was all kinds of sweets there, cookies, cakes and stuff. And I didn't have any and I didn't have the urge to. And I had no urge to judge anyone. I did not say anything to anyone. And obviously they would say stuff to me like, oh, Randall's not going to have anything. Or, it's like making it kind of awkward. Like, don't just pretend that I'm not even fit. Like, I don't care what you have. When I do care what people have is when, it's like every week they're eating cakes and cookies and stuff. They're gaining weight. At the same time, they're complaining about like broken sleep and headaches and joint pain and stuff like that. And it's like one thing you'll understand when you do cut out all the processed sugar and sweets and cakes and stuff, those problems go away. They really do. And honestly, I know this from being diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. When you're diagnosed with something like that, you have to food journal. And when you food journal, you start to draw direct relationships between the stuff you're putting in your body and your symptoms. Symptoms could be, digestive symptoms, or it could be pain. I've dealt with a lot of pain. And so, when people are doing that to themselves and they're adopting the mentality that Virgie here is talking about, they ignore that there might be a relationship between what they're eating and the just crappiness that they're feeling on a regular basis. And that's not good. Like, the more we can take accountability for the stuff we're putting in our body, the better we will feel. And that's the thing too. Like, you should eat less cake. On your birthday, there's a saying, save the birthday cake for birthdays, right? If you're going to have a birthday or you have a Christmas party or something, have the cake, have the cookies. Fantastic. No one's going to judge you. But if you're making that a part of your regular diet, that's not good. And you're not going to convince me that that's good. You will feel better if you can cut that stuff out. But look, you could be overweight. That is your right. And I don't want to take that away from you. I really don't. But at the same time, the people that are like, oh, it's my right to be overweight, they're also usually the same people that are encouraging social systems like socialized healthcare and stuff like that. Now, what you have to understand, this bothers me that I even have colitis because I know I'm sort of dependent on the healthcare system. I'm making costs go up because I'm diagnosed with ulcerative colitis and I have to, undergo all kinds of different situations. But people that are overweight are obviously going to put more pressure on the healthcare system. And so it would be one thing if we were like one of these Scandinavian countries where, or just European in general, where they encourage a fit culture, a healthy culture. They're encouraging their citizens to go out, take walks, take bike rides, take hikes and all this stuff. Whereas in America, I was just talking to my mentor about this in another episode about how there's a really wealthy neighborhood right down the street from me. And I walk there frequently and there's kids there because there's kids' toys outside and it'll be on the weekend. No one is walking. Absolutely no one, not a single soul. So I'll take a 45-minute, or 38-minute 2-mile walk or so like that. Not see a single person in that neighborhood. And that's exactly the issue. We can't out of one side of our mouth speak about socialized healthcare systems and then out of the other side of our mouth, encourage people to just be overweight and not care about their health and fitness, because that's what this leads to. If you're telling people that they should lose weight instead of weight, they're more focused on how people feel. They're less focused on the objective measures and the objective relationships between your weight and chronic illness. And that's the messed up thing. But my main point here is, look, the more we practice fat acceptance and healthy at any size, we stop fostering a culture that encourages people to stay active. And less people take walks, more people eat cakes and cookies, and less people lift weights. Now, you are loved and accepted as an obese person. And I want you to know that. If you have not had a good situation with your family, That's really unfortunate, but that does not, you should not apply that, project that onto society, because I don't hate you. I just want the best for you. And I think that's what true self-love is. True self-love is accepting your circumstances, as unfortunate as they may be, while at the same time improving. So you accept that you are where you are. Okay, that really sucks. Let me feel into that a little bit. What is the step that I need to take to get out of this situation? As opposed to, oh crap, I'm 80 pounds overweight. I think I'll just stay here. And as long as I exercise, then I'll be fine. I mean, if you want to take a chance with that, then you go right ahead. As I said, that's your right, but don't expect people to pay for your health care when you run into issues when you're 50 years old. Anyways, that's it for me. I will see you at the next one. If you're still here at the end of the video, I appreciate you so much. Thank you for sticking around. I just wanted to tell you about one quick thing that I'm offering to help people jumpstart their year going into 2025. So I had a friend approach me and ask me if I had any sort of like one-off starter programs for people to just pay one time and just kind of kickstart them. And so I came up with something for him, and I thought to myself, why don't I offer this to everyone? And so I came up with this package, and what it comes with is one 90-minute session. It comes with a movement assessment and warm-up guidance to basically see what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what sort of exercises should you be including in your warm-up for injury prevention. And then it also comes with an exercise program audit if you are experienced. So that's you giving me your program. I take a look at it based off of your goals. I kind of dissect it and make sure that it's heading in the right direction, make sure that it's as efficient as possible. If you're a complete newbie, then you get your own program based off of what you have access to, weights in your room, your home gym, or the actual gym, whatever it is. I'm more than experienced with all different types of environments. And then also it comes with a diet audit. So we go through your nutrition program if you are following a diet, and you can get a meal plan. We could talk about that, but typically what I like to do is give actionable nutrition tips that are gonna, something that's a little bit easier to follow. So for example, we might talk about hand portions for their meals. So, you know, a piece of protein the size of your fist, 1 to 2 cups palms of carbohydrate, and then an open hand for vegetables. So that's the program. It also comes with 2 check-ins throughout the month. Those are about 15 to 20 minutes. And of course, it's not that rigid, but the whole package comes out to $170. And I've done the math on this. This is a lot of value. And this is probably one of the best ways to kickstart. And I would really recommend you jump on this fast, because what you want to do is start before January 1st, get some momentum, and then get another surge of momentum going into the new year. So go ahead and email me if you're interested at randall@alwaysadaptive.com, or you can visit my website, and there's a button all over the place where you can schedule a free session, and I can get to meet you, and we can go over options and talk about what's next. So thanks again for sticking around for this video. I really appreciate it, and I will see you at the next one.